Zach, as our resident Flash fan, going into this review, what does this movie mean to you?
It meant a lot more yesterday before I saw it. There's definitely parts that work.
Yeah.
It's not all bad.
Just the editing, the special effects were just not on the same level as even any of the other DCEU movies.
We all violently disagree and do not condone the actions of Ezra Miller. That's why we're discussing this.
Welcome to Backseat Directing,
Where we talk about movies, TV shows, comics, and more.
we're your hosts,
Andrew.
and Aaron.
And we post new episodes every Monday and Thursday.
And on this episode, we have the pleasure of reviewing The Flash.
3, 2, 1.
Action. Andrew, we're joined once again by Zach, who is a regular on the show. If you don't know who he is, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Watch some episodes.
Come on. Zach, what's up?
It's good to be back, fellas. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about The Flash.
Zach, as our resident Flash fan, going into this review, what does this movie mean to you?
Well, it meant a lot more yesterday before I saw it. Yeah.
We can go into our general opinions first, I guess. Aaron, do you want to start?
I really wish that we just saw Across the Spider-Verse again instead.
And that's coming from someone who's already seen it twice.
Yes.
There was parts of the movie that worked for me, but overall, the movie did not work as a whole.
And like, that's not what you want to hear if you're someone from the creative team of making that movie. That's not a compliment. It is basically a soft insult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because I am a huge Flash fan.
Is he your favorite superhero?
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Batman's way up there, Captain America's way up there, but like on any given day, yeah, the Flash is my favorite.
You have it there definitively. Ezra Miller's Flash is Zach's favorite superhero.
Got me.
Trapped. So my general thought of the movie was that it was really, really gargantuanly, extremely terribly bad. I think that's a little bit.
Put it nicely.
That's a little bit weathered. That's a little bit weathered by the fact that I do really like superheroes and comic books a lot. So I love the DC world. I had low expectations for this movie, but I do have like a high bar for superhero content. So maybe that's part of why I hated it. I didn't think Batman came out of it looking good. I felt like Wonder Woman came out of it probably the best of anybody. She came out of it fine, but Flash came out of it
She was barely in it.
looking terrible. Yeah, the less screen time, the better as far as the writing of this movie goes. So the Flash came out really terrible. Heads up to the audience, as we get deeper, we are going to spoil this movie. So these are kind of like our spoiler-free review of the movie. But going forward, we are going to...
Besides spoiling the Wonder Woman cameo.
Sure.
Yeah.
What can
I feel like if you're going
can
to
you
watch
do?
a podcast on a movie that literally just came out, you should know that they're going to be talking about spoilers. So, come on.
What can you do?
We're good. We're good.
We passed it already.
Besides,
It's in the
Ben
past.
Affleck already spoiled that.
He did. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, I already knew
Yeah,
that.
blame Ben Affleck. Don't blame me.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, if I could go back in time and fix it, all I would have to do is super
Okay, let's
awkwardly
not go back in time.
run
That didn't
backwards.
work out very well.
Super awkwardly run.
So did you want to start going into our specific criteria here? Our scheduled programming.
Okay, yeah. So we're gonna start off with the ratings, earnings, creators. We'll go into our ratings and our system of how to rate a movie. I'm excited because we haven't actually done a rating with Zach on a movie, which I'm really sad that this was supposed to be the first one, and that was gonna be cool.
I was telling Andrew right before we went in, like we worked together that day, and I was telling him all day, I was like, dude, I'm more excited for this day of than I was excited for Spider-Man day of.
Ludicrous.
Yeah, Across the Spider-Verse. And dude, man, was I let down.
Yeah. After our rankings and ratings for the movie, we're going to go into budget and box office for opening weekend. We'll talk about the creators, Source code is a segment where we'll go into like the origin of where the story came from or where it's kind of based off of. And then we'll have our backseat directing parts where we give our 2 cents in because we know that they want it.
When we go into budget and box office, well, you guys promised a lot, and let me forget that I want to talk about the public's perception to this movie and like social media personas perception of this movie and celebrities. Like, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Starting off with a little movie summary. I don't have anything written out for this one. I was just gonna kind of go off the hip here.
I mean, that's how when they were making the movie, I think.
So I was gonna stay with the theme, of the writing theme here, and just kind of shoot.
If you don't like it, we'll just do reshoots.
We'll reschedule things. Go back in time.
We can push this video out. It's a couple of years. It's fine.
That'd be hilarious to have this episode come out 9 years from now. That's a cool concept.
We'll wait
an episode and schedule it for 9 years from now.
We'll wait until James Gunn has finished the entire DCU, the same way they waited for the entirety of the Flash CW series to finish before they made their movie.
I like it. Basically, the Flash goes back in time to try to save his parents. Things go wrong. He ends up running into himself, which is different from some of the source material stories that we'll get into a little bit later. Things go wrong, and then at the end of the day, he fixes them. Kind of. We'll talk more about it as we get into it.
It's a pretty good summary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
No,
you.
that was really good.
Appreciate it.
Like you didn't trust my compliment.
Okay.
He trusted your compliment.
I did. Well, Zach's are like positivity, and then Andrew, you like help us get views. You know what I'm saying? This movie came out in 2023, which it was supposed to come out in 2016, 2018, probably 2020.
Pick a year. It probably was supposed to come out during then.
It's rated PG-13. It's 2 hours and 24 minutes long. IMDb has it at a 7.4. What?
Very generous.
Yes. A 66 for Rotten Tomatoes for the critics with 300 reviews, which I feel like that's pretty high as well. And an 85 for audience score right now with 2,500 reviews.
85 is just bullshit.
I saw the other.
I feel like
day
that's
it went
gonna.
at 95. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to change a lot. I think the thing that surprised me most about this was how many people online were saying that this was the best superhero movie that there is, or maybe in the last 10 years or whatever. It's like,
to quote
how?
somebody who commented on our Batman versus Dark Knight episode, maybe if you've never seen another superhero movie, this is your favorite. But this is below the bar. Like,
Yeah.
that is not it. And I know that sometimes when you watch something, it doesn't look as good in like the light of day. You watched it and you really enjoyed it and had a fun time at the theater, and that's your personal experience. Then you see everyone reacting to it in public. General audiences don't like it. That's one thing. But I can't conceive
This
of
was-
how
yeah, it
you would
was
watch
like
this
the opposite.
and any lighting.
Yeah.
And it would be like this great movie that people think it is.
yeah, that's one thing I want to make sure that we never do is like take a check just to say something's good, even though we don't believe it.
And we won't say that it's bad either to get views. We won't thumbnail worst
We'll tell
movie
you
ever
what
and
we
then
think.
pretend to think it's bad. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, we're not pretending when we say we don't like it. There's no benefit to that. It was not good. And if you're watching this by some chance and you didn't watch the movie yet, I will genuinely tell you to save your money. If this was on my box office team, I would still tell you to save your money just for the sake of your enjoyment.
Beforehand, when we got into the theater, before we watched it, the theater was pretty packed in the lobby. And Andrew looked at me and he was like, man, maybe one of us should have drafted this for a team. Immediately after watching the movie, I went up to Andrew and I was like, thank God neither of us drafted this. This is not how I would want to win the box office draft. It's because of this movie.
It's like, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Lots of people who I, pay attention to on the internet too are saying like best movie ever basically. And geez, it's like, man, I trust this person's opinion. I always agree with this.
That was my thing too. People that I usually agree with.
And it was just like, what did they watch the same movie?
Or even if I don't agree with their opinion on some movies or whatever, at least there's nuggets of it that I could be like, okay, I see why someone would think that.
Yeah.
With this, I feel like I just don't have that.
And honestly, for social media, lukewarm opinions are never fun. Lukewarm opinions don't necessarily garner views, but you can go back and watch our old content, and we will say when something is mid or like okay, it's like a 7. We've given out plenty of 7s. Like this movie's not a 7. It's bad.
You're right, Andrew. It's a 7.4 according to IMDb. I want to skip around just a little bit and go over the budget and box office before we do our scores. The budget for this movie was $200 million, which I feel like has to be wrong.
That's a lie. I'm telling you right now,
yeah,
it's a lie.
with all the shuffling around and reschedules and reshoots and all that stuff, there's no way that this is only 200.
Plus Ezra Miller's legal fees.
They spend like 200 to 250 million on your average Marvel project nowadays, which doesn't include, hiring out the other big stars to be in your movie, like Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, and they're not doing 3 sets of reshoots. So there's no way this movie came in under the wire at 200. Maybe they saved money on all the not hiring a CGI team.
That has.
I mean, they told me a 14-year-old did the Lego scene in Across the Spider-Verse. I would more readily believe a 14-year-old did this entire movie.
Right. The box office for, again, opening weekend, this is the Monday after it came out. We have $138.7 million, which didn't even make their budget back yet. I mean, it's early, but I feel like the word of mouth isn't going to help this movie at all. Yeah. Even biggest fans of The Flash, are saying like this movie isn't worth watching,
Which, sometimes the biggest fans are harder to please. Like I've said for certain Batman appearances, if I'm a bigger fan, maybe that means I'm not as ready to like it. But I do think Zach is pretty open-minded and accepting to like different styles of representations of characters and things like that.
I mean, I like everything, and I didn't like this. So
that says something right there.
Yeah, and like you do have a good point of like, maybe I wouldn't like it because I'm expecting such a, I want something so good for The Flash. But Grant Gustin, I think, really works as a Flash. And like that show's never been
perfect.
The most, it's a CW show. I mean, there's all the CW writing and
at least
everything. And it still works,
At least his Flash isn't like annoying to watch.
Yeah.
He has a personality and they stick to that.
He's smart and fun. And I remember when he first showed up in Arrow, I was like, man, I like this guy. He is a likable character. And then the Ezra Miller Flash is just not likable.
No.
Like that first appearance when he's like, oh, I'm late to everything. It was so enjoyable from the Grant Gustin Flash in Arrow. Yeah.
I agree. With Ezra Miller, I've never been sold on that casting of the Flash. Like even back when, Barry Allen first shows up in Batman vs Superman, and we'd find out who is cast as like the supporting Justice League. That was the only one that I was like, man, I'm not really behind this, because I had seen him in like other things, and I was like, this doesn't work for me.
I think it's easy to get behind the casting of every single other member of the Justice League.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I wouldn't argue with any of them other than Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
Agreed there. Let's go ahead and go into our ratings for the movie. The first category we have is story. This is out of 10 points, Zach. This encapsulates the writing, the plots, the twists, the turns, just how the story was executed. What do you give it?
We also have a lot more in this episode, so I think with the ratings, we should move at a decent clip.
Sounds good.
So this is, I don't have any of my ratings pre-selected. This is going live. For story, I'll say 8 out of 10. I think the story is pretty good.
It's a little gap between that and my rating. For my rating, I gave it a 4 out of 10.
I give it a 3. Yikes.
The only thing that I found enjoyable about the story was the arc relating to his mother, which is built in from the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's,
I feel like even that, the way it was presented, just felt clunky.
I've seen
we talked about it after the movie.
A lot of people praise that ending scene where he has to put the can of tomatoes back, and it's like this small butterfly effect event representation that has these big effects for his life. We know that what it means to him, and it's very emotional, the slow motion, yada yada. But I just didn't feel it, because at that point, 2 hours into the movie, everything else was so unenjoyable. I'm like, it's harder. You can humanly feel for a character losing their mother, but you want to like that character that you've put in that position to ideally to make it land.
I feel like that last conversation was like clunky too. Like
It felt awkward to me. Sierra,
like I love that cereal. I'm like,
it felt awkward to me
Yeah.
too. Sierra, my fiance Sierra was like, well, she's a nice person. She might like try to be comfort a stranger, but it still just felt awkward.
yeah, she carried that conversation on a lot longer than any stranger would have.
I think for that, like that was one of the parts of the movie that actually did work for me. Not necessarily every part of it, like the cereal part was like, I can get behind that being awkward, but I think what they're showing there is that like that's just the type of person his mother was like is the person that would comfort a total stranger when she sees they're in need. And actually at that part, I kind of teared up a little bit. I didn't cry, but I felt the emotion of like a son, and the connection that he had to his mother that he lost.
Yeah, I was incapable of tears that far into what I had seen in that movie.
I just like, I'm a mama's boy. So for me, I was like connecting with that part of it. And I agree. I had watched the same movie. So the first, 2.5 hours that we just had watched was, not good.
For me,
but then that message I definitely connected with.
I much prefer like the Last of Us route, which is like, I call it like the burn the world route, where I would not sacrifice my mother the way he was doing. I mean, I know it makes him the hero of the story, but
Yeah.
I would much more connect with the Last of Us, where he's like,
I don't know if that fits this story, but I see what you're saying.
You though, like we were talking about how in Spider-Man the PlayStation game, how Peter Parker has to choose to save the city instead of Aunt May, and how you really
yeah, no, I was crying in that scene of the game, but they wrote a better story to lead up to it.
Yeah. I knew the positive Zach was in there somewhere.
Yeah, there's like I told you after when we talked, it was like there's definitely parts at work.
Yeah.
It's not all bad, but overall it's bad.
He's over here like, I didn't like this movie. 8 out of 10.
I like this story. This story I think was good.
That's so high.
But going on to the acting, which I feel like was the scene we just talked about, is probably some of the best acting in the movie, at least as far as Ezra Miller's concerned, which was potentially the worst actor in their own movie. But I give the acting a 5 out of 10.
I gave it a 3 out of 10 as well.
Yikes on bikes. Low
Yeah,
scores.
I just feel like his Flash, the alternate Flash that started out without powers was just too much to handle. Like he was beyond dumb. Why? Like the Flash was supposed to be a pretty smart character, right?
That was the writing and the performance.
Yeah.
That was both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like to me, like no one else really stuck out. Like any of the other actors that I really like in their roles, like Ben Affleck, like they were in it for like 3 minutes. So like,
And not doing
I
very
can't
much
really,
acting.
I can't really account that into the acting much. Like he was riding the motorcycle most of the time we got to see him, which looked cool at some points. But yeah, a 3 out of 10 for me. Zach, what did you give it?
Again, I'm doing it live, so I think I'm going to stick with a 3 out of 10 like Arron did. Just because the only positive acting really that I can point to is like, I thought Sasha Kaya acted good as Supergirl. Like there was nothing really cringy about any of her performance. But then at the same time, there was so little of it that it's like hard to like say like, oh, it saved the movie, and then I thought his mom, the actress that plays his mom,
She did a good job.
she did a good job in all her scenes. But other than those two,
I thought Michael Keaton did a fine job in every aspect besides the fact that they wrote a line for him where they said, "You want to get nuts?" That was kind of stupid, but that's the writing.
once he suits up, I think it's good. But the stuff beforehand, I think, is just like,
You didn't like the spaghetti?
no, I mean, it was like, it's a pretty good explainer, but to me, they seem like he was kind of playing like a crazy old man just for the sake of playing a crazy old man. And then that all goes away once he suits back up. Then he's just, he's right back into Michael Keaton Batman. And that worked for me.
Also, as someone who has had long hair, he was not acting like he's
What a wig, right?
yeah, like he kept holding his hair like this and like pulling it to move it out, like grabbing it with a full fist and like
Yeah.
moving it out of his face.
That one
Like
of these.
yeah, it didn't feel natural. It felt very clunky.
Yeah.
And every time he like interacted with his hair at all, it took me out of that scene completely. I was like,
Yeah.
why can't they just make him look old? You know, and like that's enough.
Yeah,
You know,
and it would've been enough.
maybe he has a little bit longer hair than normal, but it doesn't have to be down to his neck.
Yeah.
They were forcing a reveal
Yeah.
because they didn't want you to recognize him right away.
Which
Yeah.
who
Which
didn't
even-
know that was Batman
Right,
in the
right.
Wayne mansion? Like, come on, who else would have
With
been?
them so heavily marketing that Michael Keaton was in the movie
Yeah.
as well.
He looks so different too on the face reveal because I was like, that did not look like Michael Keaton.
Yeah, it
when
wasn't
he
like
had,
an epic like.
yeah,
oh,
like
that's him.
when he
let's
has the
go."
beard and the long hair, like he looked way different than Michael Keaton looked.
Yeah.
I was like, I knew it was supposed to be, but when he like lands and you see his face for the first time, I was like,
Yeah,
that don't look like Michael Keaton to me.
I thought the acting for most everyone was fine. I thought the writing of their lines was pretty bad. But the main thing that stuck out to me, like you said, was the alternate universe Ezra Miller. That was just unbearable. Not funny. The SpongeBob laugh. That like where'd he get the surfer dude SpongeBob laugh?
Yeah.
And then just the way that not having his mom in his life apparently made him like unintelligent, unbearable, completely not independent.
yeah. It did make me like our Barry just a little bit more though.
Which feels like the goal of every DC movie that comes out next,
Yeah.
to make you like the last one more.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think-
so
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to move on to the next
that's
category.
fine. That's fine.
We have cinematography. So this is how they set up shots, composition, VFX, special effects, you know, like basically anything that you see. This also includes editing as well, you know, like when they chose to cut from which camera angle to camera angle. Do you need a minute to think of this one? You want me to go first?
No, I think yeah, you go first, but I think
right.
I know what mine's gonna be.
This is my favorite category to rank on every movie. And it hurts me that it's so low. I have it at a 4 out of 10. A big part of that is just the editing, the special effects were just not on the same level as even any of the other DCU movies. I know the director was like, "Oh, it's bad on purpose."
Yeah.
I think that was only referring to the dome, the time dome that they're in. But I think all the other special
Dome or something.
yeah,
Dome.
all the other special effects like the babies and stuff in the beginning,
God,
like
babies don't remind me.
they were not supposed to look like that. You know,
So like if something's bad on purpose, but people think it doesn't work, it's still just bad.
Right.
Bad on purpose isn't an excuse that suddenly makes it good.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, this was a stylistic choice. I hate it. That it's still
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah, like in that speed dome, what was it called?
Chronodome, maybe.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
called Chronodome.
Why couldn't they have just filmed like the actual people in those situations?
The same way that people looked
like
at Spider-Verse when they
Yeah.
were in animation, they were just like a
yeah, like a little hologram or something, you know, like
Yeah.
at least make it a real performance. And so the best part for me was Supergirl. She was awesome. Her suit looked amazing. I leaned over to you during the movie, Zach, and I was like, I love her suit. Like it's so cool. And every time she would show emotion as she's Supergirl fighting Zod, they would cut away in the middle of her scream or in the middle of her getting hurt or something. So we like didn't even get to see her performance as Supergirl. So that was very frustrating. That's why I have it a 4 out of 10.
Remind me one more time what we're ranking right now.
Cinematography.
Camera work.
Basically,
So
the way
not
it
like
looks.
set design or anything.
No.
It's a different kind. Okay. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 10 because I think it's all very bad. Like there was one shot that I was like, oh, these guys will like it, as in you guys, because the Batwing like flies upside down and there's kind of like a fancy transition. But even that, like compared to the Spider-Verse version of that shot where like he walks and then they're sitting upside down,
yeah.
that was beautiful. But the Batwing one was just like, it was like, okay, they just put that in there to put a fancy transition in.
We honestly can't even keep comparing this movie to Spider-Man.
No, I know. I'm
So
just saying,
unfair.
like, because usually I don't really pay attention to, like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
like this specific shot. But
Yeah.
since I talked to you guys about those kind of things, I starting to pay a little more attention to those things. But yeah, I mean, there's none of it is like, there's nothing, I don't think there's really anything special about really any of it. The only thing that I liked a lot that kind of stood out to me was I thought that when Flash runs from Central City to Gotham City, I think that
In the very beginning?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that is the best like super speed traveling that I've seen. You see him go through tunnels and wooded areas,
Running on water.
running on water. Like it just kind of all looked really good. That part did, but other than that, everything else was just underwhelming.
Andrew, what's your score?
I gave it a 6 out of 10, the highest score here at the table, because I do feel like there were some good shots in this movie, and I feel like if you remove the bad CGI, it would be an even higher score, like maybe even like full 2 points higher. Because I can think of a handful of shots that I really liked. The scene where they showed the way that phase shifting works, and they zoomed all the way into the eyeball, into the molecules in the eyeball, showed them vibrate through the molecules of the door, and then zoom back out from his eyeball. It looked really good. The shot you mentioned around the Batwing was really cool. The like cinematic shots of Michael Keaton falling out of the Batwing, especially the one where it's like silhouetted with the moon. The shot that comes from the back of the Flash's heel and then has that as he launches off, then following with the shots of him going through super speed across the country, showing all these different locations. All that I thought looked really good. The Flash running during those scenes looked stupid because of the mechanics of the running, but the shots moving through all that environment such a quick amount of time did look cool. So it for every step forward it took in those things I mentioned, I think it kind of took 2 steps back, and that's why I'm down at a 6. Yeah. But there are cool looking shots in this movie. Just CGI really failed them.
I do like the shot too of the bat suits being revealed. So there is like I said, there's good things in this movie, but
a 6 honestly is probably even too generous, because when I think about all the deep faking they did and how you could literally just look at the 2 Flashes and be like, okay, that is Ezra Miller and that is a deep fake with another actor body double. You could literally see on their face clearly.
What blows my mind is like on the internet you see people do deep fakes
better than
and
that.
It looks incredible. It's like you can't even tell really. But then you would think at least this mega studio with all this money couldn't do better than that, than just some person on the internet.
And they didn't have to do a double Barry storyline at all.
Right.
There was no
Could
need
have saved
for it.
yourself from having to
hire another actor. Use Zod as the villain. I don't know.
Yeah, there wasn't, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more. There wasn't really a villain. That really
the villain was
himself.
Barry's mistake.
The villain was literally Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
In every sense.
Our next category is sound design. So this is the track. This is why am I did
this something last episode. So it's the score, soundtrack, and sound effects and mixing.
Yeah. So for me, I gave it a 6 out of 10. So far, this is my highest category that I've given to the movie. Yeah, I mean, like when he's running and stuff, like it sounds cool when he's, the sound effects of the fights and all that stuff sounds cool. The track was fine. It didn't like distract me from the movie, probably because the rest of the movie was distracting me from the movie.
It was a cool, really cool sound effect in that shot of his heel as he's about to run to Gotham, and there was like a gun cocking almost sound effect. I was like, ooh, that was cool. I felt something there. And then he just fires off. Like there's this cool sound effect they use every time that he goes into super speed. I wish I could replicate it for the microphone, but I give the sound design a 7 out of 10. And part of what really carries that is like the homage to the original Batman score, and hearing that those big loud brass instruments in really prominently featured in the Batman music was really cool. It feels a little campier. It feels true to
his character.
Yeah, the origins.
Zach?
I'm gonna say 4 out of 10 on this one. I think you guys paid maybe more attention to it than I do.
But if you didn't notice anything, that's kind of bad too.
Yeah. So the only real thing I have to say about this category is the sound of him, like you said, taking off, like that kind of almost like a lightning strike kind of sound. That I thought was really good. And yeah, when they play the Michael Keaton's Batman theme, that was good too. But other than that, most of the songs that played, I was not getting hyped for because I didn't know them, or they just, I don't know, they just didn't feel right to me. For the ones that I did catch, So yeah, I think I'll stick with a 4.
Let's move on to the next category.
All right, so that next category is going to be set and character design, which I ended up giving a...
Well, this is out of 5.
Yes.
Instead, because we think the other 4 categories hold more weight.
Yeah. So for set and character design, I gave the movie a 2 out of 5.
Andrew, I agree. I have the same score.
Because every single set in the movie which a bit of an exaggeration, 90 to 95% of the sets in the movie were overwhelmingly CGI heavy. The rooftop in that Russian black site was just CGI mountains for miles, the CGI snow. The battlefield was just a blank, desolate, boring battlefield at the end of the movie.
That was the worst
with
part.
CGI
Yeah,
in
for the set
background.
design.
The only cool setting in the whole movie that literally earns it the entire 2 points is Wayne Manor and the Batcave. Nothing special about any other sites. I mean, the character design was cool originally, but that in the trailer to me, but then when I actually saw it played out on film, a lot of it kind of looked cheesy, or they didn't look well when they were moving, or Ezra Miller's head looked disembodied from their body.
Yeah,
It was not moving in the right way. So I just was not feeling the Flash suit in the actual movie as much as I did in the trailer.
Yeah, we also went from the possibly the best bat suit to arguably one of the worst bat suits in Ben Affleck's suit in this movie. And yeah, and just the fact that we like saw him in the daylight and we could see all the details of this suit that just wasn't on the same level. I feel like it would have been so much better if they just would have kept it the same. I get why they do it, right? Because of the toy sales or whatever. But like, just make it a little different, you know? Don't change the whole thing for this movie.
Would you rate it?
Same as
rated
you.
it 2 as
2
well.
out of 5.
All right, and I was actually the only one left.
He's gonna say like a 4 or 5.
I was gonna say a 4 because for me, like
Read your mind.
I for the most part really liked, especially the Flash's suit. I thought it looked pretty good. There's parts where it does look a little bit kind of wonky. The Batwing looks amazing. The Batmobile looks great. The Batsuit, in my opinion, or it's not the Batsuit, the Bat Cave is the best Bat Cave we've ever seen in live action.
Disagree.
I think it looks incredible.
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale.
Come on. But anyways, I think, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but to me, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman suit looked like kind of tuned up. Like it looked more bright. For me, the main thing that really knocks it down is like Ben Affleck's new suit and the younger Barry's Flash suit.
Oh my God, he sawed the ears off of Batman's suit. His head looked so goofy the whole time.
Yeah. So those two things.
concept.
Really kinda,
Yeah, if he had just like actually, he's got super speed. You know, let him make some real alterations to it that actually look good.
Yeah. The desert scene for me, like, really docks a few points, you know, like the fact that there's literally nothing there, like it's literally just flat sand.
The sight of a battlefield should be unique and meaningful. The end fight of Man of Steel is in Metropolis because that is Superman's hometown. Like watching it get destroyed and all these people's lives get destroyed is very tough to watch.
And I get the fact too, like, oh, we don't want to do it in the city, you know, to kill all these people and all this stuff. But like, at least make it, right. But at least make it look interesting, you know?
So I get what you're saying about like it, you know, it is kind of a unmotivated scene for the final or the big fight of the movie. But chronologically, like that's when in Man of Steel, when Zod first makes contact with humans, it's in a desert like that.
There's bushes and
also in
trees and roads and stuff. Like
when Man of Steel came out, Batman was Ben Affleck and not Michael Keaton, so it's not like they were bound by any rules to do that.
I mean,
they chose to do it for other reasons than that, honestly.
Yeah,
to make it cheaper, I think is the main reason they chose to do it.
Yeah.
It could be to make it cheaper. I mean, I don't know anything about how all that works, but they were confronting Zod when in Man of Steel, Superman shows up in that moment.
Well, she went back. She was there, watched them kill the army during that meeting that we saw in Man of Steel, and then she went back and helped Barry get his powers. So they came
how
back
long did
after
that
the
take?
fact.
Didn't also
Well, because the battle was still going on though, so it couldn't have taken that long for her to get back, do the powers, him wake up.
Well, there wasn't much of a battle. Zod just literally killed all of them.
But there's still
there's tanks and stuff
She
moving in the
watched
background,
the
isn't there?
battle. She watches the battle initiate when Zod kills the first soldier, and then when they go back, they're still fighting.
Yeah, there's like tanks and stuff moving behind them, so there was some left. But
Okay.
I mean,
Either way.
it's still stupid.
Yeah.
But I think that went down so awkward too. Like the line for Zod, I think, was something to the effect of, "You didn't bring what we wanted, so now you die."
Yeah.
So like I mean, Michael Shannon, I think, is a phenomenal actor. Was the person I was most excited to see come back in this movie, and
Highly underused for sure.
super underused. No, and really, you can't even save some of the lines that they wrote for Zod in this movie. Nobody could.
He was just an offshoot character.
Yeah.
He didn't even want to come back originally. I mean, he was hesitant to come back, and then he got permission from Zack Snyder, who he seems to respect a great deal and seems to have loved working with. He got like the go ahead from Zack Snyder to come and work this new story with Andy Muschietti, and
Yeah.
I wish Zack Snyder had said no.
One other point I was gonna say about like the costume design and stuff, the cowl of the bat suit, like I feel like it's just so overly designed with like big in your face like eyebrows and stuff, that because the cowl just looks so weird on him. But
On Michael Keaton.
no, on Ben Affleck, because he looks incredible in Batman vs Superman. That cowl looks amazing.
His head shape looks so weird in this movie, didn't it? Maybe that's the same
The
reason.
cowl looks just so weird. Like if you look at stills of it, there's so much like
He didn't look like Ben Affleck.
expression
in the face.
lines in the cowl. Like the cowl should just be plain, you know?
Plus him doing a voice, I was like, are they like using a stunt double right now? Why does he seem so weird looking? Like his neck looked strange.
It just, yeah, it all. Well, and the design of the suit too, the breastplates are like way out here. So you can see there's like almost 6 inches of space between where his head is, his body is, and where the suit like ends. Yeah. So it's like, it just is so weird looking. I do like that they went with blue,
But you still
live action.
you gave it a 4 though. You're complaining a lot about
Well,
all
I
these suits.
do. There's a lot of complaints, but I think overall, like I think everything related to Michael Keaton set design looked and worked like beautifully.
That rooftop on his house though was so just CGI. Like, use one real place. Use one place.
Yeah.
I'm begging you.
Yeah,
There's that whole movie was filmed on a soundstage.
guess-
They didn't take a step off of like a blue screen the entire movie.
I guess now would be the time to talk about the cameos and stuff too, right? Because we're talking about
Characters.
set design and stuff.
Do you want to talk about it now?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So, well, that was really bad. Maybe I should have given it a less than a 4, but.
You can change your score. We haven't submitted.
That honestly, the
Thing
CGI
yet.
at the end, the like alternate universe CGI, that should knock my cinematography score down. Honestly,
Yeah, it was like
The more we talk, the lower our scores are going.
I
guys.
I don't know why they wouldn't have just used like I mean for the Nick Cage one, obviously you can't use archive footage because that never happened.
Right.
But like for the Chris Reeves one, for the George Reeves, you could have used archive footage. and made it work a lot better.
You just don't get it. It was supposed to be bad. On
You're right.
purpose.
You're right.
No, but when they're listed in the IMDb credits as archive footage, but they made the archive
But it's
footage
not.
look
It's
worse.
not archive footage at all. And another thing too. Why, if it looks that bad, okay? Why don't you get actors that are still around and you can just shoot something new with, because it will look normal. It would look good. And like I like the idea of those older characters showing up, but I think it should have been archive footage so they actually look believable, because this was like just terrible looking. Why did you not get Nick Cage to shoot that spider scene? That would have looked so much better, because the whole scene looked fine except for Superman's neck up. It looked terrible.
Yeah, you're right. The
I
fight
don't
with the
know
actual
what they were
spider
doing.
looked fine.
Yeah,
like the
right,
actual
yeah.
spider itself.
The Superman suit looked good. It all looked fine except for CGI Nick Cage.
I'm trying to pull up the two Batman suits here.
Side by side.
Yeah.
That is a really cool suit. We're looking at the Batman suit for. So the first Batman suit we're looking at is from Justice League, or is that from?
This one's from Justice League.
Yeah.
See how this part of the cowl is like an eyebrow still? It just looks so weird, man.
It's like the Dwayne Johnson eyebrow.
So it happens on these suits too. I've always
does.
noticed it.
You're right.
On Ben Affleck's suit, but this one's also like blue. I know in this picture it doesn't quite look like it,
Look
but
how busy it is. Like, look at the arms.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like full gauntlets. He looks like Batman versus Superman.
this one's
suited
so
up.
like clean, and that's not even the man or Superman versus Batman one either.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, Justice League suit Batman, besides the tactical suit, looks great. And then Batman vs Superman Batman suit is like the best bat suit in my opinion.
We have to get on to the very last category, though,
There's
which
one more.
is rewatchability. My rewatchability score is my lowest score. And for the first time ever for myself on this show, I gave a 0 out of 5. And I hope to never watch this movie again.
Yeah, so the way we kind of rationalize this is if we ask someone 5 times, how many times do you want to watch this movie? I would also say 0. I don't want
Stopping the high five over.
I don't want to see this movie again. I left this movie feeling like I had no reason to watch it for a second time. Not even because like I want to watch it and see like things that I missed or like see if it is better. Like maybe the story's better than I first thought. I don't care.
I'm gonna say one
One was
because
enough.
I probably would watch this again at some point in my life. But
Bad day.
yeah,
Maybe
you
a
know,
0.5.
because I'd like to go back and watch things from start to finish. So like I'm sure at some point I will again watch the DCEU from start to finish, Man of Steel
Yeah.
to The Flash. So yeah, I think I'll say 1 because I'm sure I'll watch it at least one more time.
I feel like the only reason I would possibly watch this again was that it like was relevant to one of our episodes that we had to film on the podcast. But
Yeah.
even then, like I'd beg Andrew, like, please don't make me watch this movie again.
The only reason I would rewatch it is if I had a traumatic head injury that gave me amnesia. And I forgot how much I didn't like
That's
it.
probably a good movie.
That's gotta be good. I love The Flash.
All right, Zach, any guesses what this brings your overall score to?
Well, I had 2 kind of high ones in the beginning, and then the rest were pretty lowish. I'm gonna guess around like a 7, around a 7.
Your total came out to a 4.0 out of 10.
Whoa,
Brutal.
that's pretty bad.
Mine came out to a 3.6. Andrew?
Mine came out to a 4.8.
Oh my gosh, Andrew loves this movie.
Shut up. That's the worst score I've ever given.
This movie.
That's the worst score I've ever given.
I knew it.
I claim to be the most enlightened and objective among us. How did you come out to a 4.0?
I don't know.
Well, he had a very low watchability. He had a 2 out of 10 cinematography. So those really brought the score down. For me and mine were all pretty consistently
For
low.
cinematography, it just nothing was special about it.
Yeah.
There's like nothing memorable. You know,
I do
I
like
memorable
the
shots.
I do like the shot where his bat plane exploded and he is like falling through the air and then he like catches it with
That
his
part
cape.
was-
Like
that
that
looked-
looked really cool.
Seeing him glide through the air in any of the instances in the movie.
All of his flying scenes were
I told Aaron, I was
Good.
like, dude, you see how the cape goes like rigid?
Yeah.
And he needs to like glide it. That is cool.
The Dark Knight does that too.
Yes.
Best Batman of all time. So, are we ready to go into who's in front of him behind the camera?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, in this segment, we normally start with who's behind the camera. So, I'll start with the director, who we've already mentioned, Andy Muschietti. Andy Muschietti?
Machete.
I'm sorry, Andy, if I mispronounced your name. I didn't like your movie. I'm also sorry for that and slandering it for the last like 30 minutes. But he directed It Chapters 1 and 2 and directed Mama. So this kind of marks his departure from horror films. Although this film was horrifyingly bad, it was more of an action movie. Writers include Christina Hodson, who wrote For Birds of Prey and Bumblebee. Not a coincidence, probably, that those are also 2 movies that I didn't like. And Joby Harold, who wrote for Transformers: Rise of the Beast, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and produced Robin Hood and John Wick 3, which are also all movies that I don't like. At least for John Wick 3 is okay, but John Wick 3 is the worst of the John Wick movies.
Favorite, yeah.
So kind of makes sense that these 2 people are writing this movie because they have a track record of writing movies I think are bad. Maybe other people like them. I don't know. Music was by Benjamin Wallfish, which I felt like was one of the most bearable parts of this movie. Even going so far to say his music was actually pretty good. I think that they made good choices, and I think that some of the sound effects were really good as well. Cinematography was done by Henry Braham, who has also done The Suicide Squad and Guardians 2 and 3. I think like I said, I think there were some really good shots in there. I don't think the communication was quite there between the staff on set and the section of production that does special effects and animation, things of that nature. Editing was done by Jason Ballantyne, who did the editing for It and The Great Gatsby, and also by Paul Machlis, who did editing for one of my favorite movies, which is Baby Driver. And I think the editing in this movie wasn't really a negative, so I think the editing in this movie was good. Is there a consent?
It was okay.
I don't think the edit was so bad. I think that considering all the reshoots, especially,
That's true.
you have to
Right?
think
It was
what they had to work with.
Definitely, they probably did the best that you could with like the situation that they were in. But I really didn't like how they would cut right before you would see the face and the emotion, like during a fight and stuff. Like,
Some of the cuts to
but that doesn't mean it was all bad, you know. But that's the stuff that sticks out to me the most.
some of it has other reasons behind it too. Maybe they didn't have the right something for that shot, or maybe there were special effects in that shot that they weren't ready to have finished by the release date, something like that.
They lost the footage after having it stored for 5 years, you know. Like who knows?
Ezra Miller stole some.
When you that's funny. When you really think about kind of how unique this movie is, it is still incredible that this movie actually came out.
Dude, they're lucky it did, so they can get at least some money back from it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. One thing that you said about there was like a lack of communication between people on set and whatever else you were just saying. I just watched a podcast interview with James Gunn, and he was saying that like on all of his calls, he has the people that are doing the like costume design and editing and stuff also on the call, because that way everybody's on the same page. And I was like, that makes so much sense.
Hey, here's why we can't do that thing, because if we are gonna kind of like the issues they ran into with Deadpool 1, and they found a really clever way around it, but like having to remove the guns from all those scenes because they didn't have the budget. But they were like, hey, we don't have the budget to do this part with the guns, so let's do it like this, and it came out awesome.
Yeah.
Like they found a creative way around it because they communicated.
Everybody's working as a team.
Yeah.
As instead of everybody's doing their jobs individually.
Yeah.
And then it comes together.
Yeah. Whenever I'm working on a production and we were able to have these pre-production meetings, that's when the shoot goes the smoothest, you know, and then it translates into the edit as well. Like having the editor there to give input, you know, of like how shots should connect, or like how to maybe tell the story, or where to like actually shoot something, you know. Like again, it's not his job to come up with all of that, but just having that little piece of input in there frequently throughout the production process helps a lot in coming up with a kind of a stress-free filming environment, you know. Like it's definitely better whenever everyone kind of collabs together, or at least when there is a collaborate, or let's say like this group of people, they get together and they meet and then they explain what was going on in that meeting to everyone else on the team, and they're open to suggestions and stuff. Like that's whenever my shoots go the best, is when we're all kind of working together.
I think this is something not everyone considers when watching a movie, is like maybe people think that people show up to set, they act, the person with the camera records it, and then they like load that up and there's a movie. But we've run into this kind of a lot ourselves when we used to make content together, and it's like maybe Zach's in the scene that we're trying to film, and it's like, oh, I'm going to stand here, and I'm like recording it, and I'm going to stand here, and Aaron says, well, if you move that way, it's not going to work because the last shot went down like this, so it's going to be confusing if you move to the side like that. There's
a lot that goes into
exactly.
It. It's not just
more than people realize.
Yeah, it's not just show up, record, play.
Yeah.
We did a production last week. It was at a virtual production where big LED screen, you know, like half semicircle. There's LED screen above, so like everything's lit up. You know, you see this on like The Mandalorian and stuff like that.
Brag.
We had a 12-hour walkthrough the day before, and then a 12-hour shoot the day of for 4 15-second videos.
Wow.
That's 24 hours of work, like on set, for 1 minute of video.
But I bet you felt prepared when it came time to film.
Yeah, exactly. We actually finished early because we were able to have all that preparation. But like, if that's how long it takes for us to make 1 minute of edited content, imagine how long it takes to make a movie. Like, there's a lot of moving pieces, and like,
about 9
even
years.
though, what, yeah.
That's an average, I think.
Even though we're giving like criticisms, like we do recognize like all the hard work that has to go in to make a movie, and just for whatever reason, this movie just had a lot of obstacles in place, and it's unfortunate.
I respect the fact that they were all trying their best, I'm sure, to make a good movie, and nobody sets out to make a bad movie. And I'm sorry that I really don't like it, but that is how I feel about the movie.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's like, you know, Andy Muschietti, like, he can make a good movie. The movies
It's
are
like
good.
great movies.
You know, so it's just like, I don't know. I think there's like all these different parts, but none of them were the right parts to fit together to make this movie. Because I've even enjoyed Ezra Miller in other movies.
Perks of being a wallflower.
Yeah, that's exactly. He fantastic in that movie. But I've never just anything he does as the Flash. It's just not been.
This movie made me like Batman vs Superman even more. And it's not to say that I didn't like that movie. There's definitely really good parts in that movie, but there's also like really bad parts in that movie. But now it's like, man, like I kind of want to rewatch it, you know, like
new bar. But I do have to get to the people who are in front of the camera.
Yeah.
So our cast of this movie includes Ezra Miller as the Flash / Barry Allen / corrupted Barry / human trash, Ben Affleck as Batman / Bruce Wayne, Michael Keaton as Batman / Bruce Wayne, Sasha Calle as Supergirl, hope I pronounced her name correctly, Michael Shannon as Captain Zod. Didn't get my reference?
No, just keep going.
Michael Shannon as General Zod. That's what Barry called him, Captain Zod. One of the jokes of the movie I actually laughed at. Maribel Verdú as Nora Allen, Ron Livingston as Henry Allen, Jeremy Irons returning as Alfred, Kiersey Clemens as Iris West, and Ian Lowe as Little Barry. There he is.
Yeah. So one thing that I don't know all of, like, the details behind, but I've seen things that said that Ben Affleck was not credited for this movie, and that is like translating. It just, to me, it just shows how much of a mess this movie was. I don't know all the ins and outs of like what has to happen for an actor to be credited in a movie, but he was in it, so I would assume that movie he's credited.
He's listed on IMDb, but I didn't pay attention to the credits
Ben
on
Affleck
the movie.
did say, he was quoted saying that in contrast to working on the Joss Whedon Justice League movie, this movie was an enjoyable experience for him to work on with Andy Muschietti, and that obviously things were not good and not a good working environment on the original cut of the Justice League.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's that to the credit, you know? I mean, a set should not be toxic. It should be enjoyable for the actors to be on it. That's my fault. I think that my biggest problem with the cast of this movie is that if you had asked me what I wanted most out of this movie, I would have said less Ezra Miller, and they tripled down on Ezra Miller. They're the most that I feel like they could put in, short of just giving us a whole multiverse of Ezra Millers. I was like, oh great, looking at this trailer, we're gonna have 2 Ezra Millers. You get to the end of the movie and there's 3 goddamn Ezra Millers in this movie.
Spider Society over here of Flash.
If you count the kid.
Dude, we wanted half and they tripled it.
Yeah.
Like, after everything, and we'll get to Ezra Miller's controversies. We're not going to gloss over that. We have that information pulled up, but I just can't believe that they gave us so much, and it just seemed lazy. Like, you couldn't put someone else as your main villain, and it was not the person for it. It was the worst person for it. I mean, with everything that unfurled, we've been saying 9 years, but 9 years is from when it's announced. They were probably working and planning and writing even before 9 years. You had all that time to realize this was not your star and do whatever you had to do about it. But they tripled down on it like a bad poker player. I don't know.
I want to know, like, which shots and stuff were reshoots. You know, like, what was originally planned?
What did they fix? Because this movie.
That's what I'm saying. Like, at what point were they too far into having 2 Flashes? You know, like, if you're doing reshoots, like, that couldn't have been fixed.
I'm
like, that was
there were
so
3
early.
endings for this movie. Like 3 filmed endings. Like,
That's
it's
wild.
all over the place. There's just so much, like, that just does not work and come together. It's terrible.
And everyone loved it. I posted a TikTok yesterday. All the comments were, "You're ridiculous. This movie's great. You guys are haters. The movie's so good." What movie did you watch?
I promise I'm not a Flash hater.
The biggest Flash lover I know.
Yeah,
guys,
for sure.
On this desk, you can see, if you're watching video, what I'm pointing at. This is the Flashpoint 25th edition or 25th anniversary omnibus that I've been reading. Like, I don't dislike the Flash. I just like this movie that they made about the Flash.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We just want to take this time to let Zach thank our fan. excuse me. We just
Take
wanted
two.
we just wanted to take this time to let Zach thank our fans.
Hey, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends, and let's grow this podcast.
And we post new
do it.
episodes every Monday and Thursday. That was good for no acknowledgement. that you're-
Preparation, yeah.
Yeah,
that was
I didn't even
awesome.
know I was doing it.
But so I just mentioned the 25th anniversary of the omnibus. I do want to go into our source code segment now as well, talking about which is a segment where we discuss what storylines inspired the movie that we watched or show or whatever we're reviewing. So I've been reading this storyline in Flashpoint, and it's very true to the animated movie from the DCAU called The Flashpoint Paradox, which I would definitely recommend anybody watch instead of watching this movie, The Flash, because it's much better, much truer to the source material. But the source material itself it's a short series originally. I know it doesn't look like it if you're looking at this giant tome on the desk. It's a 5-issue series, but this contains all the pertinent tie-in issues from the whole storyline of Flashpoint. So this has a lot more issues in it than the. You can also buy just the 5 issues as a set as well. So it's written by Jeff Johns and art by Andy Kubert. I really like the way that it's drawn, and it's a really, really good Flash story. It's basically the point of the Flashpoint storyline is that it kind of reset the continuity. There's different lines of canon, we can say now, because we've explained that in our Spider-Verse episode. But throughout DC's history, there was like this timeline considered to be called Crisis, and that is from 1986 to 2011. 2011 is where the storyline was reset with the Flashpoint incident, which started and kicked off the New 52, which is a new era, new storyline, and reset all the storylines for all the different characters, Batman, Superman, Flash, and everybody in the DC continuity. The way that it goes down is a little bit similar to the movie, but they clearly divulged hugely from the source material. So let's get into it. So the Flash goes back in time to save his mother in both storylines, and through saving his mother and through the butterfly effect, afterwards, we get all these changes to the timeline thereafter. So now in the alternate future in the comics in Flashpoint, we see that the Amazons are at war with the Atlanteans because there was a marriage set up between Aquaman and Wonder Woman that then fell to a conspiratorial plot to separate them. Now their countries are at war, which led to a giant tidal wave from the Atlanteans, decimating Europe. The Amazons have now kind of taken over rulership of Europe, and it's like the battleground for this war between these two huge societies. In this storyline, Batman died in that alleyway from Joe Chill rather than his parents. So Batman's mother, Martha, became a twisted version of the Joker, and Batman's father, Thomas Wayne, became a darker version of Batman who wields.
Could you imagine if we got that?
I don't understand why they just did it.
Oh,
dude,
come on.
Does
Because
the story not sound so good?
well, and here's the thing: they have everything they need to do this.
Gal Gadot showed up in this movie.
She's in it. Jason
Momoa
Momoa
was
shows up in it.
They could have played those roles.
All you had to do was get. And the fans have been wanting this, and the fan art of this looks incredible. Jeffrey Dean Morgan back as Thomas Wayne.
And Henry Cavill is Superman later in the story.
Yeah, and you
Oh,
could.
it's so good.
God, I mean, the pieces are all there. They just put together the wrong puzzle.
Yeah, and they kind of, in the movie, they explained all the differences by saying that time is cyclical. So when Barry changed an event, it changed the past and the future. So you've got all these different changes. Michael Keaton is now Batman. I feel like it was a good explanation for something in the movie that I did not like or appreciate. I think they explained it away well. That's fine. I can accept that. But what they should have done is not even bothered with that and just done what the comics had, because I've been begging for Jeffrey Dean Morgan to just reprise his role as Thomas Wayne. He literally is Thomas Wayne in the opening credits to Batman vs. Superman.
Right.
I've always thought that they were brilliantly setting up the Flashpoint storyline from the very beginning, because when you watch the Flashpoint Paradox movie, that animated character is such a perfect fit for people that he's played before, like the comedian. He would fall into that role effortlessly. And it's just
he's
such
a
a cool
stellar
version of
actor.
Batman. He's
Yeah.
an incredible actor. He's underrated. And that Batman, there's this emotional choice that Batman makes, because his life has gone so downhill. I mean, basically lost his wife and his son. His wife is now a villain. And he sees in Barry Allen a potential to go back in time and give his own life to give his son a life. And that's a trade he would make in a heartbeat. And yeah, he's like this not great guy. He's a morally gray hero. He beats people to a pulp, willing to drop people off buildings and kill them. He uses guns, unlike our Batman. He is an alcoholic, but there's still this good in him, and he's willing, and he's going to go help save the world. Ultimately, at the climactic ending, plug your ears if you don't want to hear this, he's literally the one who saves the day and kills the Reverse Flash, shooting him or running him through with the sword, depending on what iteration you're looking at. Like, that is so cool. So in the storyline, the villain, which is stupidly in the movie, Barry himself, is instead the Reverse Flash, who is like chasing Barry down, changing his past. He's the one who originally killed his mother. So he's tightly interwoven into all of this. And that is the climactic battle. The Flash versus the Reverse Flash instead of the Flash versus himself. We also get to see this really chaotic version of Superman when they go looking for assistance to fight in this war because their team's kind of ragtag. Cyborg's like the only member really left that's still fighting for good from the Justice League. They go looking for Superman. They find him in a bunker. He's been kept kind of like in the movie in this little bunker kept away from the sun where his energies can charge up the yellow sun from the yellow sun, and he has all this power. When they release him, he's like this scrawny, skinny Superman, and he just goes absolutely buck wild, lasers across all these soldiers, like completely losing control.
It looked so cool in the animated show.
Yeah. It's the effects of like basically solitary confinement, but probably for decades.
Yeah.
So he's just gone mad. And it's so cool. It's such a cool character design for Superman. You have the pop for it, I think.
I do.
Which is like one of my favorite pops I've ever seen.
They gave that storyline to Supergirl in this, which like doesn't have to be one-for-one translation from the comic book to the movie. So I mean, I'm fine with that switch. I mean, I would love to see Henry Cavill.
Just imagine if it was Henry Cavill.
But yeah, man, this storyline, like, it's so, highly regarded. Fans love this storyline, and the animated movie is like, again, people love that animated movie. Why? I don't understand. They had the perfect blueprint to make $1 billion, and they completely did not even try to capitalize.
Also, a big difference in this comic that I almost didn't mention is that with the alternate reality, or with the change to reality, Barry comes back and takes his own place in that reality. There's not a second Barry, which hugely bogs down this movie, in my opinion. I think is one of the biggest negatives of the movie. Barry is assuming his own role, but he doesn't have his powers because he altered the past. So Barry never got struck by lightning and never got his power, so he has to go to Thomas Wayne, similar to in the movie where it's with Bruce, and he replicates the experiment to give himself his powers back, which comes off way cooler in the scene in the comics and the animated movie. The lightning strikes and there's this big mistake, and Batman dives in to fix it, gets blasted off the roof. Barry gets his powers just in the nick of time and whoosh, grabs Batman before he can get impaled on a fence. It's so cool. Every change I think they made to the comics was a negative. Just imagine the exact story I just described, where at the end, I mean, even Ray Fisher's in it as Cyborg. At the end, they wrap up, they stop the war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, and then Flash goes back in time, resets the timeline, and fixes everything. And imagine that with these actors: Jason Momoa, Ray Fisher, Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot. They had every tool at their dispense to do exactly what I just described, but they chose not to do it for whatever reason, whatever studio producer issues you want to point at. They did not make this happen. That I think is a huge failure.
It probably all started with firing Henry Cavill back in 2017.
I don't even know why they did that.
Yeah. But that's probably where like this all started to change.
Yeah. Who knows the decision, why they were making those decisions? Because like they just at every turn they shot themselves in the foot because
almost on purpose, it seems.
It's what I'm saying. The studio heads, whoever was making the decisions, was just not making the right calls. I just want
to hold this up. So look at this book if you're watching on video. This is the omnibus I've been talking about. It is a 25th. I'm sorry. I've been saying 25th the whole time. I just turned it around. It's a 10th year anniversary edition. And I also literally said 2011 earlier. After when this came out. Okay.
None of us got it.
But look at this. It's a 10th year anniversary edition. You know why it says 10th year on the side? Because they literally did a reprint. That means people have loved this story so much that they did a new printing of this to do a 10th year anniversary edition and spent the money with the confidence that people would buy them. That's how much people like Flashpoint. And they're like, let's change it. It doesn't have to be page for page the same, but there's no real respect to this story in the movie I watched. Yeah, in my opinion.
It has to be one of the highest regarded animated films too, right? Flashpoint.
Yeah, it's my top three.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing.
For the
So
DC
like
project.
you literally had this movie like written for you already, you know, like change it a little bit to fit the live action format, but like
change it to make it your own. Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean,
put your own spin on
the
things,
story
but,
is here.
yeah.
Like that's the changes they made, in my opinion, were all for the negative.
Yeah, I can agree more.
Part of the kind of downfall of this movie was Ezra Miller himself.
Part of is doing Ezra Miller a kindness.
Crime spree.
Yeah. So I have a little timeline here of all of his mishaps, will you? Starting back in 2011, he was charged with marijuana possession. Okay, whatever, no big deal. That's
Hey, it's illegal.
legal in
It's
most
a-
places now, you know, like
Victimless crime for 2011. It seems
yeah,
like.
yeah. So like
We'll find victims.
there's hope, right? Some might say like that was the sign that we could have all used to predict the future, but we think okay, whatever. On April 2020, so we jumped pretty far. Ezra Miller appears to choke a woman outside of a bar. That's a little bit more intense than marijuana.
Have you guys seen the video?
Yeah, it's very
It's
damning.
pretty wild. I mean,
It's
you're
brutal.
not, yeah, you're not really.
There's no way that was like an accident.
Yeah.
No way. January. Sorry, would you?
Justice League would definitely return their application based on that
Oh
video.
man,
Yes.
dude, I laughed so hard in the theater when he.
Oh, that was the best part of the movie.
And is like, yeah, you should seek
Mental health
professional mental
services.
health services, and I just laughed so hard because like
the Justice League hasn't quite figured it out yet.
so clearly that line was not written as like a meta joke or an ironic joke about the real life situations Ezra Miller's dealing with, but it's like man, that did not come out ironically.
You don't think that was directly related to his?
No way.
I don't think that they think it's funny.
I don't think they think it's.
the
Then why
movie
leave it
was
in?
already pretty much done.
Then why leave it in?
I don't know. It's a good question.
They have to have thought it was funny, right?
I don't
know.
think that was on purpose.
It's pretty hilarious.
See, like I would have taken that out. Then I mean, you reshot this movie 3 times.
I just think it was tone deaf.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
Probably.
January 2022, they delivers a cryptic message to the Ku Klux Klan.
You want to explain that for us? There?
Yeah. So
It's so unfortunate.
Ezra Miller posted this kind of weird video, basically telling the Ku Klux Klan to like kill themselves.
Look, if y'all want to die,
Yeah.
I would just suggest unaliving yourself with your own guns. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like weird, especially in the context of like the choking the woman thing, and
Yeah,
it just kind of was like,
much.
What's
Too
going
much.
on here? I don't disagree with the message of like, but hey, fly under the radar.
Especially when you have all this heat, Have you ever played Need for Speed, and you're flying around with the car, it builds heat and you got to switch cars until the cops kind of lay off
Yeah.
of you a little bit? That's what we have to do here.
I just feel like the DC producers had to be like seeing that come out going, I mean, he's going after bad people, but I just wish he would say nothing for
Yeah,
a little while.
Yeah. And I believe when that video came out, maybe it's in the video or just around the same time. I'm pretty sure there was things saying like where he was believing that he was being followed or like FBI was investigating it or something else was also going on around that time. Yeah, don't disagree with the message, but maybe dial it back a little.
March of 2022, they is charged with disorderly conduct and harassment. This is in Hawaii.
Yeah, this was because of like a bar, something at a bar, some type of drunken disagreement. But I'm pretty sure he like also it was against a woman or something like that too.
Police say the actor got agitated by people singing karaoke at the bar and then started to use derogatory language. Miller began yelling obscenities at one point, grabbed the microphone from a 23-year-old woman singing karaoke, and later lunged at a 32-year-old man playing darts, added the HPD. Was that Hawaii Police Department?
Yeah.
It's like the state.
Could be like Honolulu. I don't know. I don't know where this was,
could
but
be.
yeah.
And by the way, this information we're getting is from People Magazine's website.
For people.
We heard it from this.
We called the cop out in a yeah.
We wanted first-hand reports only.
Right. We flew to Hawaii.
I wish.
In the same month of the same year, a restraining order was filed against them. Burst into a bedroom,
It keeps getting better.
and made some threats. I will bury you and your wife. You know, like things that you probably shouldn't say.
Things that you
You probably shouldn't just burst into the bedroom in the first place.
you should probably knock before you say something like that. I mean,
April, not too long after,
a month later.
arrested, second-degree assault charge, again in Hawaii, and then in June, man, he was on a hot spree here.
Yeah, it was the
June,
crime wave of Ezra Miller.
accused of grooming.
Yeah. See, for me, this is definitely the most serious, the biggest one for me. You know, anytime there's like a crime committed against a kid or a potential crime committed against a child, it really rubs me the wrong way. So, for people that were boycotting this movie, I think that this is a pretty good reason to boycott something.
Yeah, it's tough, and the thing is that it's the thing about boycotting it, and I see both sides, is because when you boycott it, you're also punishing all the other people that worked really hard on the movie.
Yeah.
And Ezra Miller is not the only person in this movie. I see it as a valid reason to not go see it, and I would never tell somebody they're wrong for not going to see a movie for they're having their own reasons. But also,
Wouldn't have been a bad idea.
yeah, in hindsight, I wish we hadn't seen it. But I do think there is a lot of other people who don't deserve to be punished for this person's mistake. Other stars, other directors, editors, producers, camera people, grips, people all over the set that worked hard that want this movie to come to fruition. So I see the reason behind putting it out.
By going to see it, it doesn't mean that I support the grooming of a child.
So
sure.
I think we meant to open the show maybe even with this, but we all violently disagree and do not condone the actions of Ezra Miller. That's why we're discussing this. If we're laughing about this at all, it's also just because it's completely absurd how terrible it is.
Good work.
Coping
I mean,
mechanism.
for example, the assault you just mentioned was against a 26-year-old female, struck her on the forehead, and she had a half-inch cut on her head. It was so, like...
I mean, that's a pretty good hit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not... I can hate it right now, and you're probably not going to bleed from it.
Open up a wound, like...
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys and our audience is thinking like, that's got to be it, right? No, wrong.
But wait.
Another parent in June of 2022 comes out with allegations against them. In August, there's committed or accused of burglary. In August again, another emergency care order to a mother staying at their house.
They honestly just sound like a victim of being in the wrong place at the wrong time,
Yeah,
Like,
and then in August, August 2022, they are now seeking mental health assistance.
It's
Justice
a
League
journey.
finally got a hold of it.
It is a journey.
And then he later pleads guilty to burglary charge.
Yeah.
Pleads guilty to to misdemeanor.
Yeah, we wish the best to the victims of all of these instances and crimes, or what you would want to call them. But
He's got to be done in Hollywood after this. Like
you would think
he's
you would
got to.
think, but then you see them walking across the red carpet at the movie's premiere,
And the fact that
Apparently with a handler, though. I watched the interview,
Yeah.
but I didn't notice the handler, but apparently there was somebody that was like, had him on a leash.
that's how I saw.
But still, like,
there's a woman walking behind.
still, why risk it? Why risk it? Like
Seem to be
no one's
standing
going
behind them. Like
Here's
no
the
one's
thing.
going to the movie because of him, right? Like,
Yeah.
why risk him being there in the first place?
He's the two main characters, really. So it's
but-
like, I don't know. I wouldn't have done it, but I don't know.
And then
when
the
I
director
canceled
coming out saying, I don't know if this is true or not, but the director coming out and saying that
they wouldn't work with anybody else.
yeah, that he can't be recast, like he is the Flash. If we're gonna do another one, like he has to be the guy. Like
I think a lot of the that kind of stuff that like the big heads are saying, like the big wigs
Yeah.
are saying, is to not steer people away from seeing the movie. Because if you say like, yeah, we're gonna be recasting the Flash,
yeah, but just don't say anything at
or
all.
there's no potential for a sequel, or like maybe Ezra Miller will play the Flash in the rebooted universe.
Yeah.
If you say all the opposites of those things, people aren't gonna, they're gonna be even less interested to go and see the movie. So these people are thinking financially, we're gonna play it safe and not, we're gonna say something, but not really say or give an answer.
But James Gunn seems to genuinely like this movie and genuinely be like on the side of Andy Muschietti because he's tethered Andy Muschietti to one of the staples of the DC universe by seemingly asking him to be the director for Brave and the Bold, from what is like the word on the street.
Yeah, I
That's
think
that's a huge stamp of approval, is it not? Like that's like the most important or second most important thing for the DCU.
well, and James Gunn too. I just saw an interview where he said like The Flash is one of the best superhero movies ever made. And then like when you look at
Better than Guardians 3.
all three of the Guardians movies, and you look at the Suicide Squad movie that he did, like
Easily worse than all those.
no, they don't. This movie doesn't even hold a candle to any of those movies. So like again, is he? Because he's also the studio head now. Is he coming at it from a standpoint of like, I gotta name a CEO or anyone that's gonna be like, oh yeah, this is like a
But like you can just say like, oh, this is a good movie. I hope people come and watch it. Like we all worked really hard. I'm excited that it's finally
You
coming
don't have
out.
to ride for it this hard.
Yeah, you don't have to be like, oh, Ezra Miller, he's the Flash and he needs to be moving forward. Like you don't have to say that to promote your movie.
Well,
like we're
I think
all
only the director
on
said
board
that.
already with everything that's been bad. We already know all of this stuff. The people that are going to go see it are going to go see it anyways.
Yeah.
You don't have to attach yourself to someone like this and give maybe speculation that you want to work for with them moving forward.
I think there's
Like,
too much of a cult around the idea that everything has to be a connected universe because they feel like they have to convince us that this has some meaningful like going forward, it has to connect. But if you told me the movie was really good and then you told me that it was going to have no impact on the DCU, I'd still like want to see it. I think that there's too much emphasis on everything having to be connected. You don't want to see something if it's not contributing to a universe.
And while that's true, probably most of the people, like they're probably just worried that most people aren't going to see it if it's not connected. Like think about all of the movies that come out nowadays that are somehow connected to the past. Like it seems to me like lots of movies are somehow like
have a built-in audience.
yeah, and it's a safe bet because people will go and spend their money at these movies, but at the same time, clearly we're seeing, especially with DC, that's not the case.
Yeah, everyone already knew though that this is like the reset of the DCEU. Like even James Gunn himself has said that.
Everyone that's paying attention.
Well, he even said, I guess so.
Yeah,
but
because not many people know what James Gunn's like statements are. I mean,
Some people might have seen
not the average person, I guess I should say.
Justice League all those years ago and said, "I'm never seeing another DC movie again," and have no idea where that the DC universe is about to be rebooted or anything.
I'd be curious.
They might still think Ben Affleck's Batman.
I'd be curious to know what percentage of the audience for these Marvel and DC movies come out that are like comic book fans / like hardcore superhero fans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty high majority, but there are a lot of people I think that were introduced to these characters through these movies as well. You know.
Well, think of like if Avengers Endgame can make $2 billion, right? There's not $2 billion worth of hardcore superhero fans, right? People are going to see that movie because of like the hype around it. This is like the biggest movie that's ever been made, basically, and
It's like the Super Bowl. Everyone's going to be talking about it.
right. So let's go see it, I personally think that probably it's only a small percentage of people that are like these movies that are making whatever Shazam 2 just made or Black Adam just made. That is probably the true amount of people that are the diehard fans that are going to go and see superhero movies. I think probably general audiences are kind of stepping back from
It's seeming like it.
movies.
And honestly, Disney's had some really tough quarters lately, not just in terms of their MCU projects, but also in terms of their other projects. So I really don't know what to expect from box offices nowadays from what we're seeing from like Elemental and Disney's other I always thought
Even
Disney
Ant-Man.
I thought Disney projects were a surefire hit, from Marvel to Pixar to all this stuff, and it's a little haywire what we're getting.
This year's been a little wonky.
To me, when I think about like box offices and like future numbers and stuff, to me it would make sense that basically movies, unless they're bad, will always grow. Because if $2 billion worth of people saw, Avengers Endgame, wouldn't they want to see the next movie too?
But the market's changing because there's people have so much access to streaming. It's like your entertainment commodities. Like if you can get 90% of your entertainment at home, now you only need to spend 10% of your money or 10% of that entertainment is all that cost you have to allocate towards movies. You're going to allocate it towards 2 movies that year instead of 6.
Yeah.
So you're going to cut out the fat of The Flash. That doesn't really, I don't really understand it. It's kind of complicated. I'll go see, Transformers Rise of the Beast instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this all kind of goes back to the reasoning of like, why attach yourself to this actor that has been causing so much mayhem? Like,
I definitely think it's misguided. I think I'm not in their shoes, but if I had to guess, it's because they don't want to steer any more people away from seeing the movie.
Sure.
But I do think that's a misguided reason for for saying such strong statements where, in my eyes, only Ezra Miller can play the Flash.
One often meets their destiny on a path they take to avoid it. Master Oogway, Kung Fu Panda. I think that they're trying so hard to keep things together and cohesive that they're actually making it a giant, fantastic mess.
This movie didn't even connect that much with all the other movies.
Just showed people from them.
Yeah, it's just they were in there for 3 minutes tops, and then we got a different Batman from a different universe, and it didn't even seem like Michael Keaton's Batman was a continuation of his Batman before. It seemed like a different version of his Batman.
Honestly,
didn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything. I mean, other than like the Batmobile, like some of the design things were the same. The Batmobile is the same. The house was the same, but there's no reference to like that specific Alfred. There's an Alfred, but we don't know who or what he looks like. Same with like,
look at the age of that Batman.
He says he's alone.
You have to visit a headstone.
Yeah.
I believe there's a follow-up comic that Bruce Wayne marries Selena Kyle. Or actually, it's in Crisis on Infinite Earths from the CW. There's a paper that says Bruce Wayne marries Selena Kyle.
Yeah.
And it's the person who's reading it is from the Michael Keaton movies. So you're led to believe that Michael Keaton's Batman married Selena Kyle.
Didn't our Jeremy Irons Alfred just seem like so shoved in and like kind of awkward and out of place in this movie? I thought he did.
Well, I mean, to me, not really, because it's just so fleeting. Like he's on the phone for like a few seconds. You see a quick flash of him drinking some coffee, and then he doesn't show up again.
Yeah.
He's gone.
I feel like, Andrew, I think you're right, because
he was like, I'm proud of you, Mr. Allen.
yeah, but like he didn't even affect the story at all, because he would say something like, hey, this building's going to collapse. And Barry's like, it doesn't look like it. I'm here.
And then he would react until
fine
after it collapsed. So he didn't even have an impact.
Yeah, he wasn't useful at all. He was literally just telling us what was happening rather than them just showing us. Barry was always a big critique with movies.
All versions of Barry were so stupid at every turn, just not intellectually there.
And the fastest man alive watched a shovel fall for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, that was
caught it.
Too much. Yeah, that was bad.
So obviously we all don't have the highest opinion of this movie, but I want to know what you guys are thinking about the future, and what is this all setting up? What's it leading to?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I didn't have much faith in this movie to begin with. I've never been the biggest fan of the DCEU. I kind of lost interest after Batman vs. Superman. Thought it was a little confusing. Again, some really cool parts in there.
The second movie, you were like, I'm out.
Yeah, that's bad, right? That's bad.
Yeah.
And then when I came back and started watching these movies again, I was like, oh, this is why I didn't really like them.
Every time I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Yeah. But the announcement that we got a few months ago from James Gunn, like, it gave me some hope. But I don't know. I think it'll be cool if it's executed right. I mean, these characters are awesome. Like if we can get another good casting for all of these characters, and then we have James Gunn, who has a good track record with superheroes, like, there's hope that this could be a really cool story. It seems like he's going to do a good job of connecting everything together without making it seem forced, like he wants to transition from live action to animated with the same, like, characters. That sounds really cool. I don't know if everyone's going to like that, though. I feel like it might get kind of like the Marvel TV shows where it's like, oh, there's just too much to keep track of. Or, like, I know a lot of people who like superhero movies, but are just really turned off by animation, which is really unfortunate because animated movies are awesome.
They're missing so much.
Yeah, but like there's a lot of people that just won't go and watch those movies or shows just because they're animated. You know, like Invincible, I found that to be the case with some people and stuff that I've talked to. Across the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, like some people just don't want to go watch that because it's animated. So I'm excited about all of that. But again, I feel like my bar is down here. You know, that way I can be blown away.
Yeah.
What do you think, Andrew?
I think they say something like insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And in that respect, I guess with the DC movies, I am kind of insane. Because I always inevitably get my hopes up and I always get excited from a trailer. And then I'm always like dashed and disappointed. And even in this instance where I started with low expectations for The Flash, they still managed to dash and disappoint me because
You
they
know what
trend.
this S stands for? Hope.
That's Henry Cavill just inspired me with so much hope. It lasted for like 2 decades. So I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm literally still excited for Blue Beetle. Like you couldn't get me not excited for Blue Beetle. I love the trailer. I like Joel Maridueña a lot because I'm a fan of Cobra Kai. I think that things could potentially be looking up. But then there's that little ringing voice in my ear that if Andy Muschietti is directing The Brave and the Bold, that I'm a little scared. If James Gunn told me that he loves loves The Flash, thinks it's one of the best superhero movies ever, I'm a little scared. If that's what you think makes a great superhero movie,
It's that
like,
last statement that like makes me really nervous. It's the best superhero movie ever. Like,
that one statement
that wasn't necessary to say. You didn't have to say that to sell the movie.
but that shouldn't be able to counteract like basically a decade of good work with Guardians and the Suicide Squad. Those are good movies. So it's just one thing that he said. I've said I like movies, and then 3 years later, turn around and been like, that movie was actually kind of shit.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm still optimistic, and I guess I'm a fool for that. But we'll see.
maybe he saw a different cut of the movie.
I don't know. We can say that. It's up to them to make me not a fool. So I hope that they do.
How about you, Zach?
Well, you know me. I'm a DC apologist, so dude, I have to I gotta start doing something to like kind of reel my hope in because like when I sit and think about it, like I'm just pure excitement and
They
like
screwed us so
optimism.
many times, dude.
I know, but see,
Child of the amusement park.
to me, Superman Legacy is going to be the first movie that we see that James Gunn is actually
involved
steering the ship. He's in charge of that.
That's
like,
where we'll know.
When you look at the Suicide Squad movie, it's one of the coolest movies in the DCU or DCEU. And, you know, like the characters are compelling. They do Starro, like they do the fantastical comic book things. And in my opinion, there's not very many like cringeworthy moments in that movie. It's a good movie. And James Gunn did that. And then of course they'll work with Guardians, you know? So
and the work with Peacemaker too.
Right. Yeah. So for me, I think that we're in very good hands, and again, I think James Gunn right now is thinking from because he's not just a creative now; he's also the head of a studio, and yeah, he has a partner that's the financial side of it, but he also has to think, I have to make this studio make money, you know?
Yeah.
So I think he's going to say those things, and I think he's going to play it safe and not reveal all the cards like, yeah, we're going to be recasting The Flash. You don't make that announcement before you try to make as much money as you possibly can off these last few movies. I just think that he's going to nail it, hopefully, with the Superman Legacy movie.
Hopefully.
Beating his head against the brick wall and expecting a different result.
I'm telling you, man.
I'm
After like the first couple of DCU projects, if I'm not feeling it, I think I'll
That's just
be in the boat of like.
First view, I feel like
they're pushing it back so much. The reserve to make judgment has been getting pushed back.
Yeah.
3 movies every time.
But this one is justified. Like this
true.
one, because
I feel like
DC's
only
been so-
Superman.
We can never
Legacy,
say
though.
that they're only going to make good movies. We can never or bad movies. We can never say that either way. But as we come towards the end of this episode, I do want to remind everyone here and at home that no matter what happens, we still have the Batman Part 2 directed by Matt Reeves. So we still have a little parachute over here at DC. So don't even sweat. Don't even worry about it. He's going to carry us home.
It's going to be awesome, especially if the studio stays out of it, you know, and like
touch the Batman Part 2.
There's no like politics involved and we just let Matt Reeves do his thing. But at the same time, there's other characters in DC that I want to see, you know, like
2 points to that. So I think that we are in safe territory because James Gunn is at his core a creative. So he's not, I don't think he's going to come in and say, Matt Reeves, change all this stuff.
No, yeah, you're totally right.
He's going to let Matt Reeves tell his story.
Yeah.
They've already said that from the beginning. Story is king.
Yeah. Also,
story is going to come first.
Also, when you become management, there are things you have to change about your core beliefs to like please the people.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like some things that he's going to have to compromise on, but it's kind of like someone at your job who's now your boss, but like they used to be on the line with you working at the front desk or something, you know, like they kind of see the ins and outs. So they'll try to make as many changes as they can, but there's still like processes and rules in place that are kind of obstacles for them to make the best work environment possible or make the ship run as smooth as possible. So hopefully they can iron out all of those little details between him and the studio to where we do get good movies, because that's all we want.
Yeah.
Just don't touch the Batman Part 2.
Yes.
Please.
The other last thing I was going to say, when you said that like you want to see other characters, it blows my mind. I was talking to one of you guys about this the other day, but only Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Shazam, and Black Adam have had their own standalone movies from DC. Out of the entire pantheon of DC characters,
Yeah.
And
5 of them,
And this is
Flash.
and the Flash now, yeah.
and this is
Unfortunately.
and this is the first installment of the Flash.
and,
so.
and only recently, like in recent memory, has Wonder Woman gotten her movie. I just forgot too. Supergirl had a movie like many moons ago. So there's like what 7 is that now? Out of all the pantheon of DC characters that have had their own standalone live action movies, that's just so disappointing to me because there's so many characters that I feel like they could make a movie about.
Yeah. Let's get a good Green Lantern movie out here, please.
Oh, I'm missing a lot because Harley Quinn, the Emancipation of Harley Quinn is
but it's also not. You said standalone solo movie, and that's the Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
Technically. So I thought of that one.
I forgot about Green Lantern.
Okay, sounds like DC has a lot of individual movies.
No,
But, I mean, like,
I
when
thought you
you
were talking about the
compare it
DCEU at first.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, but even just DC in a general sense, like all of DC,
it's been mostly Batman and Superman since
And-
dawn of time, really.
and Supergirl was like a one-time thing. Green Lantern was a one-time thing. With Marvel, you have multiple sequels for multiple characters. Like,
Yeah, no, for real. Like Batman didn't even get his own movie in this universe.
who's
Wild.
ever heard of Shang-Chi?
Wild.
Now he's got
And he's got his own movie. Like,
And it was a good movie.
I was barely
Yeah.
familiar with him, beforehand. So, and like, yeah, it's a good movie. How does like Shang-Chi have a standalone
Get made
movie,
before the
but
Batman
Before, like, I just
in the
don't get it.
DCU. Crazy.
We have said a lot. I want to thank anyone definitely who listened this far, all the way to the end of the episode. Really appreciate you. We love
You're
you
the
guys.
true MVP, for
Seriously.
sure.
There's gonna be one of you maybe that makes it this far. It's
You're
probably
welcome. It's
me.
gonna be I'm gonna watch the whole thing.
But I definitely want to thank everybody, and I want to remember to plug our D&D episode. It might be a couple weeks to a month or two before we have it ready to go.
So those of you who don't know, we're doing a D&D campaign with the Marvel and DC theme. And we're going to do that in celebration of 100 episodes.
Huge benchmark.
We're so excited. We have 5 or 6 people all coming together, and we're going to play this game, and we're make a cool video out of it.
It's gonna be a Marvel and DC theme, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the Flash today.
It'll be like probably a multi-part series or whatever for this one campaign. We're very excited for it. Again, it'll probably come out in like 2 months or so, a month and a half.
And if it's not more entertaining than Andy Muschietti's Flash, I'll eat my shoe on camera.
Part of me is like, oh, okay. But yes, thank you everyone for watching. Again, we post full episodes on Monday and Thursday on Backseat Directing. And that's a wrap.